Hello and welcome. I'm Leigh-Ann Gerrans and you're watching W News, broadcasting live from the Arabiya headquarters. These are our top stories. Aid distribution centres in Gaza are closed as Israel's military warns roads leading to the sites will be considered combat zones. President Donald Trump has doubled tariffs on steel and aluminium imports from today. And the annual Hajj pilgrimage has begun, with over 1 million Muslims from around the world expected to take part. To our top story, aid distribution centres in Gaza have closed today after Palestinians were reportedly killed by Israeli gunfire near an aid site yesterday. In a post on Facebook, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which is backed by Israel, said the centres would be shut for renovations, organisation and efficiency improvements. Israel's military has warned roads leading to the sites will be considered combat zones. And in a statement, it said Hamas is losing its grip on the population in Gaza and its control over humanitarian aid. Let's take a listen.
Efforts are constantly being made to avoid harm to Gazan civilians, while dozens of terrorists are being successfully eliminated. Our operations are fully aligned with our objectives, the return of our hostages, and the decisive defeat of Hamas. We are delivering major setbacks to Hamas and pushing the terrorist organization closer to collapse. As a result of our military operations and the pressure we are applying, Hamas is losing its grip on the population in Gaza and its control over humanitarian aid. Over the past week, designated distribution centers were opened in southern Gaza to provide aid directly to the civilian population. Tens of thousands of food packages are being distributed daily by a US-based civilian company. This initiative is proving effective. Gazan residents are coming to the distribution centers to receive the aid. The civilian population of Gaza understands that Hamas is not taking care of them. On the contrary, Hamas is actively trying to prevent them from receiving the aid.
For more on this, I'm joined by Dr. Ahmed Al-Farra, who's the head of the Pediatric department at Al-Nasser Hospital. Dr. Ahmed, a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you for joining us. The aid distribution centres in Gaza are closed for today. This comes after reports that 27 Palestinians were killed while waiting for aid on Tuesday. The IDF says these accusations are false, but they've admitted warning shots were fired. Have you seen children and adults into Al-Nasser Hospital with gunshot wounds?
Okay, thank you for having me. Thank God that it is closed, the aid center today, because it is just for targeting and for killing. You know, the people, they are going there as they are hungry and they want for food and for feeding their families. And unfortunately, as we saw yesterday, they came by gunshot in the upper part of the body, in the head, in the chest. Suppose that there were a lot of crowdiness there. Suppose there is a lot of something of confusion there. You should alarm them. You should, if there is something about fear or something about security, you can alarm them by shooting the legs, for example, but not in the eye and in the mouth. There is snipers who are enjoying that we saw. All of them, they are adolescent and adult. I think adolescent 10 to 12 years. There is also 20, 25 years. There is a woman also. There is a woman who went there to feed her babies. My friend. Today, Philippe Lazzarini, the Commissioner General Commander of UNRWA, said in 3 sentences the situation in Gaza. He said that no humanitarian aid has entered Gaza for over 3 months ago, approved. Second, the suffering of people in Gaza is unbearable and worsening day by day. Approved. The third one, the only safe way to deliver aids in Gaza is through the United Nations and UNRWA. UNRWA is a United Nations organization. All the world are convincing about there. We don't want anyone to distribute the aids and the food unless UNRWA or something belongs to the United Nations. Why we are not recognized to dealing with the United Nations and with UNRWA, as the whole world is recognized there and dealing with them? This is the question.
Doctor, you are there and we are not. Israel will not allow foreign journalists into Gaza. And I'm keen to ask you, Doctor, what you see of Hamas. The Israeli forces argue they are attacking Hamas that are hiding in places like Nasser Hospital. Are you aware of Hamas hiding in the hospitals, underneath in the tunnels?
My friend, this was told before in Shifa Hospital, and it was fake and nothing about that. And also they will tell that story about Nasser Medical Complex, about Shifa Hospital, about Kamal Adwan Hospital. Every time they get inside and they destroy everything in the hospital and make the hospital is out of work. And then they said that we didn't found anything. There is no tunnels. There is no someone hiding in the hospital. The hospital, I'm talking about Nasser Medical Complex. The Nasser Medical Complex nowadays is the only hospital that it is serving near 1 million people. You know, the European hospital is completely destroyed now and it's out of service. Nasser Medical Complex is dealing with the patient that it is from European hospital and around Nasser Medical Complex and the people who were evacuated from Rafah city. So it is dealing nearly in compensation of 4 hospitals. Suppose, unfortunately, if Nasser Medical Complex was attacked by the occupation Israeli forces, I think the health aids and the sector of health will be completely collapsed in Gaza Strip in this time.
And you've said there that you're serving 1 million people. What are you witnessing in the pediatric department? And is there enough medical equipment and supplies to treat those children, Doctor, who are in desperate need?
My friend, day by day, we are suffering more and more. You know, 4 or 5 days ago, we are dealing with mass casualty coming from the distributional aids, from the guns and shoot guns. We nearly lost the last piece of sterile gauze. You know, the sutures, we have lack of it. The instrument for orthopedic operation, either internal fixation or internal fixation. We are nearly lost, and the list is 0 from it. A lot of the drugs are lost. The antibiotics are lost. My friend, we are talking about 100 days, nothing, no pills, no cannula, no IV saline, no sutures come inside to the hospital. And also we are dealing with a lot and a huge number of mass casualty, either targeted patient, woman, pediatric, adult. You know, sometimes we are talking about average of every 15 minutes, someone is targeted and coming in the hospital killed, either by Air Force strike or by bombing or by distribution aid targeting. the situation is unbelievable. We are talking about health sector. You know, the humanitarian laws are talking about the law for and the right for everyone to be treated, to be educated, to be refed or feeding. Unfortunately, the coming targeting patient to the hospital, all of them are dehydrated. All of them they are thirsty. They are hungry. This is the first time for us to see this. Among the 20 months ago, the patient coming with acceptant general condition, but nowadays all of them, they are thirsty, they are dehydrated, they are drowsy, they are also targeted on top of hunger and thirsty. This is unbelievable.
Dr. Ahmed Al-Farra, thank you so much for joining us, and great work that you are doing there. To discuss this further, I'm now joined by ICRC spokesperson Hachem Osseiran. Hachem, an absolute pleasure to have you in the studio there with me. We're just speaking to a doctor from Al-Nasser hospital within Gaza, explaining the situation. Things are extremely desperate, according to what we've just heard in the previous interview. But what is the humanitarian situation in Gaza right now? Earlier today, the president of the ICRC described it as hell on earth.
The humanitarian situation in Gaza today is beyond catastrophic. It is hell on earth, as the president described. It's just, you can't really find the words to describe the depth of desperation on the ground today. Civilians are struggling to survive hour by hour. They're struggling to find food. They're struggling to find water. They're also struggling to find a sense of safety and security.
And we see that when they go to some of these aid distributions sites. But you know, I just want you to be able to describe some of the stories you're hearing from civilians on the ground. As you say, it's hour by hour, it's almost day by day they living. What do we know about these people?
So what we're hearing is, we're hearing that children are asking their mothers every day, what are we going to have to eat? The mothers don't know what to answer because there's so little food left. We're hearing from our colleagues who work in the community kitchens about long lines every single day, people desperate for food. We're hearing about the heartbreak that they experience at the end of the day, having to turn people away hungry. I heard from a colleague in Gaza that there are children who were born in this conflict, who have either died or will die before this conflict even ends. We're also hearing about massive displacement because of the evacuation orders. We're talking about elderly being pulled on stretchers. We're talking about women carrying their babies in their arms. They're walking around with plastic and sheets that they're using as shelter. To hear these testimonies from Gaza is really to confront the daily indignity that civilians are forced to face.
Absolutely, and it's so tough, isn't it? As you describe, it's for families and mothers just wanting to give their children the absolute basics, which they do deserve, as you said, under humanitarian law. Right now, when we look at Gaza, we know that aid isn't going to be coming in today through the foundation, but is there any other aid coming into Gaza, and is it enough? But what's really needed?
So the trickle of aid that we're seeing coming into Gaza right now is nowhere near enough. 1 truck, 2 trucks, 3 trucks, even 100 trucks a day is not going to be enough to meet the astronomical levels of need. People need food, people need water, people need medicine. But even beyond the basic supplies, you also need heavy machinery for the reconstruction and repair of water and sewage systems, to also repair medical facilities. So we need to also be able to provide the things so people can more than survive in Gaza. The level of needs are huge, and the only way we can begin to address these needs is through the unimpeded flow of aid. This aid needs to come in rapidly, and it needs to come in at scale.
And right now, what is the situation? Because I know that the Red Cross has a field hospital in Rafah. And how is that field hospital doing? What's the situation there? What are they dealing with?
So the field hospital over the past week has seen an unprecedented number of patients. We've never seen these numbers before. Just this week alone, so since May 27th, the field hospital has responded to at least 5 mass casualty incidents. Yesterday, the field hospital admitted more than 180 patients. 19 of them were declared dead on arrival. 8 others died of wounds shortly after. This is the largest influx of patients from a single incident since the field hospital was established in May 2024. These numbers are huge. To put it in context, the field hospital has 60 beds. So an influx of 180 plus patients is more than double the capacity of the hospital. That means there's not a single surface in the hospital that's not being used. Every bench, every chair, every stretcher is being used by a patient. Hospital staff are working tirelessly just to be able to respond to all of these needs. But there's also a strain on medical supplies because, as we know, for 11 weeks, no aid had entered Gaza, which means that existing stocks of medical supplies dwindled. And with the little aid that has come in, it's still going to take so much more time to shore up these stocks. And if the hospital continues to face repeated mass casualty incidents, the amount of existing stock is really at threat.
It's just such a dire situation that you explain, and especially for the staff on the ground and what they're having to deal with, and also the lack of aid and medical supplies getting into Gaza. Do you think that states are actually doing enough right now to end the war and really to protect the civilians that you're talking to me about?
As long as the conflict continues, and as long as civilians continue to suffer, there is more that can be done. We know from experience the benefit that a cessation of hostilities gives to the people. It means people can receive treatment. It means people can start to rebuild. It means families can be reunited. It means aid workers can respond to needs and move around safely. So it's very crucial that this hope returns to the people who have been stripped of any sense of hope since hostilities resumed.
Thank you so much for your insights and your thoughts. Very sad situation, and it was very interesting to hear what's happening on the ground right now. That's Hachem Osseiran. Thank you once again for joining me. President Donald Trump has doubled tariffs on steel and aluminium imports from today. Trump says the new rates, which have gone from 25% to 50%, are designed to bolster the struggling US metal sector. We can now go live to Susannah Streeter, who's head of money and markets at Hargreaves, Lansdown. Susannah, absolute a pleasure for you to join me today. So we're going to talk about the UK first. It's temporarily exempt from the tariff increase, but a levy remains at 25%. Is this offering some relief or continued uncertainty as the UK-US deal still hasn't been implemented?
That's right. So certainly there was relief because until yesterday, we didn't know whether the UK would be included in this hike to 50%. But it has been given this reprieve, but it will hang on whether or not the final deal can be signed, sealed and delivered with the US, this trade deal. And there appear to be a few sticking points. And we are still hoping that this deal, of course, will be signed. It will be a real blow, in fact, if it is pushed into the long grass. I mean, that doesn't look likely. The indications are that if the deal is signed, the UK won't just benefit from a 25% tariff, but actually will see the tariff go down to 0 on exports of steel to the United States. So certainly there is quite a lot hanging on this for UK Steel, the industry body, and all of those steel workers right across the UK. But there is this sign that Keir Starmer is being seen as more of the deal maker, because he's managed to extricate these concessions from President Trump that so far other leaders haven't been able to do.
Wall Street is ticking higher in today's session, and we are not seeing, Susannah, these massive swings at the moment in the markets to Donald Trump's previous tariff announcements. Are the markets now shrugging off the uncertainty, do you think, or is it almost baked in now?
Yes, I do think that there's a bit of apathy descending on markets. And there's been all of this talk about a taco economy, which stands for Trump always chickens out. That seems to be a bit of a mantra on Wall Street in recent days, and partly why you are seeing not that much reaction really on financial markets, even though these fresh tariffs have been imposed. On the face of it, potentially escalating the trade war, because the European Union has said that these tariffs, these extra tariffs on metals, certainly are not helpful, and the EU is trying to strike a deal with the United States at the moment. But as far as investors are concerned, there is an expectation that actually there will be further compromises ahead. If there isn't, although there could be a short-term boost for steel manufacturers in the United States, it would be a longer-term headache for US manufacturers who are already facing rising costs elsewhere. And rather than seeing over the longer term more reshoring to the United States, the knock-on effect could be actually more offshoring, because some companies may want to create and manufacture steel-heavy products overseas where they're not hit with tariffs. So there could be unintended consequences of this tariff hike.
So, Susannah, we are expecting Trump and Chinese leader Xi Jinping to speak this week. We also saw a tweet from the EU's trade negotiator. He said he had a productive discussion with his US counterpart today. You spoke about concessions earlier. It's hoped that they will be reached. But what are the long-term impacts, if we could just drill in on those a little bit more, if these concessions don't come to light?
But yes, well, obviously, if the concessions don't come to light, there are big implications for the US economy in terms of rising prices. But even if the concessions do land on the table, remember the baseline is for a 10% tariff. And already with that, we've got the likes of Nike and Walmart saying they're already going to increase prices. And so the knock-on effect of that is the expectation that inflation will be higher in the United States and the Federal Reserve will be slower to cut interest rates. And that will have a further drag on the US economy. Already, the OECD is predicting a forecast of growth this year of, instead of 2.2% for the United States, 1.6%. There could be a further drag on economic growth if interest rates are kept higher for longer. Trump has been talking about how he wants the Federal Reserve to cut rates immediately, saying the latest jobs figures show that private sector hiring has eased off, but policymakers are still concerned about hot inflation. So they have a real juggling act to do, a tricky tightrope, and that's despite the fact that Trump is really banging the drum for a drop in interest rates.
Yes, indeed. And I think he sent out a Truth Social message to Jerome Powell just on that today. Correct me if I'm wrong. But
yes, that's right.
Oh, OK, great. Thank you. So, Susannah, let's just take a quick look at the Eurozone, where PMI data showed business growth stalled in May. This comes ahead of US and European trade negotiators. They're actually meeting in Paris. How important is this for the European Union at the moment?
I mean, it is very important. Obviously, the EU doesn't want to be stuck with 50% tariffs, whatever that high tariff figure ends up with. It wants to get a deal. It wants to see those tariffs reduced markedly. It's got huge luxury goods giants, for example, LVMH, really reliant on wealthy consumers around the world. And even though they may be wealthy, they may still balk at a real hike in prices of these luxury goods. And, not least the drinks industry, wine producers. There is a lot riding on it. The European Central Bank is expected to cut interest rates faster than the Federal Reserve because of these pressures weighing on the economy. But when it comes to investor sentiment, we've still seen a surge in sentiment towards the European Union compared to the United States. The Hargreaves Lansdown Investor Confidence Index indicated that in May, confidence towards the European Union actually jumped by 53%. It only rose 8% for North America, including the United States, of course. So there does seem to be a lot more appetite for European assets right now, rather than necessarily for those so much in the United States. And this is a real change from when Trump won the election.
Susannah Streeter, absolutely brilliant to have your insights. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
A senior US lawmaker has said he's looking to introduce legislation aimed at designating the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization. In a post on X, Senator Ted Cruz said he plans to reintroduce a modernized version of the Muslim Brotherhood Terrorist Designation Act he previously led, adding the Muslim Brotherhood used the Biden administration to consolidate and deepen their influence. But the Trump administration and Republican Congress can no longer afford to avoid the threat they pose to Americans and American national security. For more on this, I'm joined by Al-Arabiya's English Washington correspondent, Joseph Haboush. Joseph, brilliant to have you on the show. Thank you for joining me. Joseph, first of all, what is the Muslim Brotherhood and why is it significant in the context of US foreign policy?
Well, Leigh-Ann, it's good to be with you. Thanks for having me. The Muslim Brotherhood started in the early 1900s as a group that was really supposed to be a religious political group. Years later, it developed a military wing. And then in recent years, it's really promoted, if you will, a radical or extreme form of Islam that's spread not just across the Middle East, but across the entire world.
And what recent events have prompted US lawmakers to consider designating the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization?
This has really been in the works for several years now. Actually, Senator Cruz, as you mentioned earlier, he did introduce a legislation under the first Trump administration, but failed to garner enough support to really push this through. And so you've got from events in Egypt and during the Arab Spring, then you had several countries in the region, including Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Egypt, and then most recently this year, Jordan, banning the Muslim Brotherhood. Add to that October 7th, the Hamas attack on Israel, and then the group's affiliation with the Muslim Brotherhood. And in recent days, this past weekend, we saw the attack in Colorado. And the attacker allegedly had some ties to the Muslim Brotherhood. So it's really taken on, it's gotten renewed attention in recent days.
And as you mentioned there, Senator Ted Cruz has been pushing for this for a while. What is his main arguments?
Again, he's been doing this, he's been trying to push this legislation for several years now. But really, the October 7th attack kind of pushed him to start renewing focus and renewing attention on this. And I spoke to some of the folks close to him over the last 24 hours. Then this morning, he spoke on a podcast that he thinks the Muslim Brotherhood should be designated outright due to the violent attacks and events of recent years that he says pose a threat to U.S. national security.
And what are the next steps in the legislative process, and what is the likelihood of it being actually implemented at this stage?
This could go one of several ways. So he reintroduced legislation, which basically means you're introducing a new bill. So what does that mean? It goes to the relevant committee, which in this case is the Foreign Affairs Committee. If it passes through the committee, they start talking about markups. They change language, they add, they revise. If that passes, then it has to pass the Senate and then the House before it goes to the president's desk for him to sign into law. As for how likely, I mean, it seems from speaking to again, the people around Ted Cruz and Ted Cruz himself, they think that it's very, very likely that it will get through. Again, that's the legislation part. There's another route that this could take, which some are saying that this is what the senator is trying to do, is kind of rally support for the president to issue an outright executive order designating the Muslim Brotherhood as a foreign terrorist organization, or it could be an SDGT, which is a specially designated global terrorist. But we've seen FTO really carries more of a more symbolic weight, such as groups like ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah. And just something to note as well, this has gone across it's no longer a partisan issue per se. There was a Democratic congressman this morning who actually penned a letter to President Trump and Secretary Rubio to designate the Muslim Brotherhood as an FTO.
And Joseph, what could be the broader implications of this?
Again, there's been this has been really discussed for several years now in Washington. Critics that are opposed to such a move say that this could impact U.S. relations with countries where the Muslim Brotherhood has a significant political role in governance, be it Tunisia or Morocco, and even in Jordan. Although the country just banned the Muslim Brotherhood, they do have a very big parliamentary representation. So that's the argument for those against it. Those four really think that this could cripple or impair the group's ability to get finances from abroad and then bring them back into their really central command centers.
Joseph Haboush, I hope to have you back on the show again. Thank you so much for your insights.
Thank you.
The annual Hajj pilgrimage to Mecca, which is one of the 5 pillars of Islam, begins today with over 1 million Muslims from around the world expected to take part. Saudi authorities have ramped up preparations to protect pilgrims' well-being as temperatures are expected to soar. For more on this, I'm joined by Senior Associate at Tamimi and Company and Saudi Arabia Specialist Ahmed Amonette. Thank you so much for joining me. Just to say that you are in Riyadh, I just want to start off by explaining and you telling us the importance of today and its significance in the Islamic tradition.
First, I want to say thank you, Leigh-Ann, for having me on today. In terms of the significance of the Hajj and today's importance, so the Hajj is the largest annual religious gathering globally. It's one of the 5 pillars of Islam, and it's obligatory for all Muslims who have the means and ability to carry it out. It's a deeply spiritual opportunity and a once-in-a-lifetime journey for most of the pilgrims. In terms of its significance, the Hajj is really a time for Muslim pilgrims to seek forgiveness from God, reflect spiritually, and it's a time of spiritual renewal. In terms of the rituals themselves, they reenact Prophet Ibrahim, peace be upon him's trials, and they symbolize sacrifice and devotion to God. So in essence, really, the Hajj is a powerful expression of equality as well. Millions of Muslims from diverse backgrounds are going to be gathering for Hajj in all simple white garments, standing together before God. So that's really what the significance. That's really the significance of the Hajj.
And what are some of the biggest logistical and organizational challenges are there during Hajj, and how are they actually managed? Because as we said there, so many people are expected to go, over 1 million pilgrims.
Yes, that's a good question. So in terms of the logistics and organizational challenges, the Hajj is really an act of managing a entire temporary city of, as you said, over 1 million people in a matter of days under intense conditions. So there are a myriad of challenges in terms of transportation, crowd control, sanitation, medical services. Saudi Arabia has a dedicated Ministry of Hajj that oversees and plans for the Hajj pilgrimage year-round, so coordinating with the different international delegations, as well as with the other Saudi authorities. Over 100,000 personnel are deployed for the Hajj, including personnel from health, security, and the civil defense sectors. In terms of the preparations that take place well in advance of the Hajj, those include simulation drills, zoning. There are also strict movement schedules in place for crowd management. So those are some of the logistical challenges and the ways those are being managed by the authorities here, led by the Ministry of Hajj.
So we've heard about the intense heat during this year's Hajj. What are Saudi authorities doing to help pilgrims stay safe and actually just keep cool at this time?
Yes, that's a good question. So Hajj is in June this year, so it's peak summer and there's intense heat. In terms of the measures that have been taken, thousands of misting fans have been put in place in the holy places such as Mina and Arafah. More trees have been planted. Shaded walkways have been expanded. Also, cold water is distributed to the pilgrims throughout the holy sites. Also, the Ministry of Hajj has advised pilgrims to stay in their tents tomorrow during the pinnacle day of Hajj, which is the day of Arafah. So the Ministry of Hajj has advised the pilgrims to stay in their tents, which are air-conditioned, between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m., just to mitigate the risks in terms of heat stroke and dehydration. But, in the event that people do become ill, there are medical teams dispersed throughout the holy sites and on standby. Also, in terms of technology being used to provide for the safety of the pilgrims, apps are being utilized to provide real-time alerts to the pilgrims, as well as health advice in multiple different languages.
And what does Hajj mean to Saudi Arabia beyond its religious role? How does this impact the country socially, politically, and economically?
Yes, so in terms of Hajj and its broader impact on Saudi Arabia. So since the founding of the kingdom, Hajj has been central to the Saudi identity. It's been a symbol of unity with the Muslim world. And Saudi Arabia as a country takes great pride in serving the pilgrims and takes great pride in its leadership role in the Muslim world. So in terms of socially, of course, the Hajj fosters unity between Muslims. It connects Muslims worldwide from 180 different countries with the Saudi people who Saudi Arabia hosts during the Hajj. Also, it's a time of service. So during the Hajj season, thousands of Saudis dedicate themselves to serving the pilgrims, be they civil servants or private sector workers in transportation and hospitality, as well as thousands of volunteers who volunteer their time to serve the pilgrims by providing assistance, guidance, as well as translation services.
Ahmed.
In terms of politically, the Hajj reinforces the kingdom's leadership role in the Muslim world. Economically speaking, of course, it's a huge driver of the economy in terms of jobs, particularly in the hospitality sector. But that's far outweighed by the large investments in infrastructure. So the kingdom has dedicated billions in terms of investing in the infrastructure dedicated to the holy sites and the Hajj, in terms of the Grand Mosque expansion, as well as the Haramain high-speed railway, by way of example. It's really, Hajj is an example of the kingdom's commitment, to serving Islam's holy sites and ensuring safe, accessible, spiritually fulfilling pilgrimage for all the visitors.
Ahmed, Amonette, it was great to have you on. Thank you so much for bringing us all of that information. We appreciate you. Have a good evening.
You're welcome. You too.
And we have some breaking news. President Donald Trump has spoken with President Putin. The phone call lasted 1 hour and 15 minutes. They discussed the recent drone attacks by Ukraine on Russia and developments concerning Iran. During the conversation, Putin told Trump that Russia will have to respond to the Ukrainian attacks. So that is just some breaking news. We're getting that President Donald Trump has held a phone call with his Russian counterpart, President Vladimir Putin. And that's all from us on W News. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and also follow us on X. The Dressing Room is coming up next, and we'll be back in just a couple of hours with W News Extra. Goodbye and thank you.